I never thought I'd find myself writing something like this, but I've got no one else to turn to right now. My name's Jack, and I've been married to Amanda for 12 years. I thought we had a solid life, 2 beautiful kids, a home we worked hard for, and a relationship that, while not perfect, seemed steady. We met in college. She was the girl I never thought I had a shot with. Beautiful, smart, with a smile that could light up the room. Somehow, I got lucky, and after 3 years of dating, I proposed. We got married right after graduation, and it was one of the happiest days of my life. Things were good for a long time. We were that couple that did everything together. We were partners in the truest sense of the word, making decisions, raising our kids, building a life. We weren't rich, but we were comfortable. Amanda worked in marketing at some big company, and I run my own landscaping business. Our schedules were always busy, but we made it work. I always thought we had that mutual respect and trust. Trust was the foundation of everything we built together. But lately, something felt off, and it didn't happen all at once. It was like little things started adding up, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. It started a few months ago. Amanda began staying late at work more often than usual, saying she had these last-minute meetings or urgent deadlines. She works in a fast-paced environment, so I didn't think much of it at first. But then it became a regular thing, late nights, business trips, and what she called girls' nights, that seemed to pop up more frequently than they ever did before. At first, I believed her. Why wouldn't I? This was Amanda, the woman I'd built my life with. But soon, things started to feel strange. She was distant, distracted, like her mind was somewhere else even when she was home. She'd barely look at me when I asked her about her day. When I tried to get close, she pulled away. Our sex life, which used to be regular and passionate, started to dry up. She'd come to bed late, saying she was too tired or had a headache. When we did have sex, it felt mechanical, like she was just going through the motions. I tried not to let it get to me, but it was hard not to feel like I was losing her. The turning point for me came one Friday night. Amanda told me she was going out with her girlfriends, something she did occasionally, but this time, something didn't sit right. I was sitting at home with the kids, and for whatever reason, I had this gnawing feeling in my gut. It was like something was telling me I needed to check. I hated that feeling, the idea of doubting her, but it wouldn't go away. I decided to send her a quick text around 9 p.m., just something simple. "Hey, hope you're having a good time, miss you." No reply. I waited an hour. Still nothing. That's when my stomach really started to turn. I checked her location on my phone. We've always had it on, mostly for safety reasons with the kids. But when I opened the app, her location was turned off. She had never done that before. My heart dropped. I knew I couldn't ignore it anymore. Something was wrong, and I had to find out what it was. That night I didn't sleep. My mind kept spinning, thinking about all the signs I'd ignored, all the little things that suddenly seemed a lot bigger. Amanda had always been open with her phone. She'd leave it around the house, never hid it from me. But now, lately she'd started taking it everywhere with her, even to the bathroom. I told myself it was nothing, just a new habit, but the way she guarded it now made me uneasy. The next day, she came home around noon. She was wearing the same outfit she'd left in, but she looked different. Her hair was a little too perfect for someone who'd supposedly been out with her friends all night. Her makeup was still on, untouched, like she'd freshened up before coming home. I tried to act normal, like nothing was bothering me. I asked her how her night was, and she gave me this quick, dismissive response about how she was so tired and just needed some time with the girls. Something about the way she said it didn't sit right with me. Then, out of nowhere, I noticed something on her wrist, a bracelet. Not just any bracelet. This was a delicate silver bracelet with a small charm on it. I had never seen it before. Now I know that might sound insignificant, but we've been together long enough that I notice these things. Amanda's not the type to buy herself jewelry, and if she did, she'd show it to me, make a big deal about it. But she didn't say a word about this one. I asked her where she got it, trying to keep my tone casual. She looked down at it, like she'd forgotten she was even wearing it, and then smiled, a weird, almost guilty smile. Oh, this? It's from one of the girls. We were out shopping the other day and she bought it for me as a gift. Just something small. I nodded, but something about that smile stayed with me. It was forced, like she was trying too hard to be convincing. But I let it go. For now. Later that night, while she was in the shower, I grabbed her phone. I felt like an absolute piece of shit for snooping, but I couldn't ignore my gut anymore. I had to know what was going on. Her phone had a lock on it, but we'd always known each other's passcodes. When I entered it, I half expected her to have changed it, but she hadn't. The first thing I did was check her messages. There wasn't anything suspicious in her texts, but I noticed something weird in her call log. There was a number that kept popping up, a number that wasn't saved under a name, but had been called or texted almost every day for the past month. I opened the texts. They were short, nothing incriminating at first glance, but something about the way they were written felt off, like they were intentionally vague. "Can't wait to see you," one of them read. Another one just said, "Last night was amazing." My heart was pounding in my chest. I couldn't breathe. My hands were shaking as I scrolled through the messages. Then I found the one that changed everything. It was from a few nights ago when she'd supposedly been out with her girlfriends. "I'm at the usual spot," it said. "Hurry, I'm wearing that thing you like." I wanted to throw up. My world started spinning. This was it. This was the proof I didn't want to find, but now that I had, I couldn't unsee it. Amanda was cheating on me. She came out of the bathroom a few minutes later, towel wrapped around her, acting like everything was normal. I stood there, holding her phone, and she froze when she saw it in my hand. Her eyes went wide and her face paled. "Jack, what are you doing?" she asked, her voice shaky. I couldn't hold it in anymore. "Who the fuck is this?" I demanded, shoving the phone in her face with the texts open. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. That's when I knew, without a doubt, that everything was about to come crashing down. For a moment, she just stood there, wrapped in that towel, staring at her phone like it was some kind of bomb about to go off. The silence was unbearable, and I could feel my pulse pounding in my ears. Finally, Amanda spoke, but her voice was barely a whisper. "Jack, I can explain." "Explain what?" I shot back, my anger rising. "Explain why you've been lying to me? Who the hell is this guy?" She stepped toward me, holding her hands out like she was trying to calm me down. But it wasn't working. "It's not what you think," she started. But the second those words left her mouth, I lost it. "Not what I think," I shouted. "Are you seriously going to stand there and tell me that those texts don't mean what they clearly fucking mean?" I threw her phone down on the bed, my hand shaking with rage. I could feel the heat rising in my face, and it took everything I had not to completely lose it. She flinched at my tone, her eyes darting between me and the phone like she was scrambling for a way out. It's complicated, okay?" she stammered, her voice shaking now. It wasn't supposed to happen." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My own wife standing in front of me, actually admitting that something had happened. The woman I trusted more than anyone, who I thought I knew inside and out, was admitting to cheating. The room felt like it was closing in on me, and I couldn't think straight. All I knew was that the woman I'd spent 12 years of my life with had just shattered everything we'd built together. "You weren't supposed to what?" I snapped. "Sneak around behind my back? Meet up with some guy in secret while you're telling me you're out with your girlfriends? You weren't supposed to get caught. Was that it?" Tears welled up in her eyes, and she shook her head, trying to find the right words. But every second she stayed silent just made the rage inside me grow. Finally she spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. It's not serious. I don't have feelings for him, Jack. I swear. It was just physical." I stared at her, dumbfounded. Physical? Just physical? I could barely get the words out. "You expect me to believe that makes it better? Jesus Christ, Amanda. How long has this been going on?" She looked down at the floor, her bottom lip trembling. "A few months," she admitted, her voice so quiet I almost didn't hear her. A few months. A few fucking months. All this time, while I was sitting at home with our kids, thinking she was out working or with friends, she was with him. My mind raced, going over every late-night work meeting, every girls' night, every time she'd pulled away from me in bed, and it all made sense. The lies, the distance, the weird energy between us. It was all because of this. "And who the hell is he?" I asked, my voice cold now. I could barely recognize the sound of it myself. "Do I know him?" She shook her head quickly. No, you don't know him. He's just someone from work." Of course. The classic story. It's always someone from work, isn't it? I couldn't help but let out a bitter laugh. Someone from work. Right. So what was it, Amanda? What about our life wasn't enough for you? Was I not good enough? Not exciting enough? Were the kids too much for you? What? She wiped at her eyes, sniffling. "It wasn't about that," she insisted, but her voice cracked, betraying her. "You are enough. You've always been enough, Jack. I don't know what happened. It just happened?" I cut her off, my voice thick with sarcasm. "Bullshit. You don't just fall into bed with someone by accident. You made a choice, Amanda. You chose to lie to me. You chose to cheat. Don't you dare try to act like this just happened." She broke down then, the sobs coming hard and fast. I didn't care. Not this time. The sight of her crying did nothing for me anymore. I had spent the last few months feeling like I was losing my wife, feeling like I wasn't enough, and now I finally knew the truth. She wasn't the person I thought she was. "I'm sorry," she kept repeating through her tears. "I'm so sorry." I stood there, arms crossed, staring at her like she was a stranger. In that moment, that's what she was. A stranger who looked like the woman I married, but wasn't. Not anymore. "Sorry doesn't fix this," I said flatly. "Sorry doesn't undo the months of lies, Amanda." She stepped toward me, reaching out like she wanted to touch me, but I backed away. "Jack, please," she begged. "We can fix this. I'll end it. I'll do anything. Just please don't leave me." I laughed bitterly, shaking my head. "Now you want to fix it? Now that you're caught?" I felt the bile rising in my throat. "You're unbelievable." I walked out of the room, leaving her standing there in tears. My head was spinning, my heart pounding out of my chest. All I knew was that I couldn't be near her right now. I grabbed my keys and left the house, not sure where I was going, but knowing I had to get the hell away from her. I drove for hours that night. I couldn't go home, couldn't sit in the same house where Amanda had lied to me and betrayed everything we'd built. Every time I thought about her words, it was just physical. I felt this deep rage boiling up inside me. How the hell could she reduce our life, our marriage, to something so casual, just physical, as if that made it okay, like I was supposed to shrug it off? I couldn't shake the image of her with someone else. I'd always imagined we were different, that we were stronger than other couples. I guess that was a lie, too. Eventually, I pulled into an empty parking lot outside some all-night diner. I didn't even know where I was at that point. I just sat there in the dark, gripping the steering wheel, my mind running in circles. How had I missed it? How had I let this happen to us? I thought back to all the little signs I'd ignored, the late nights at work, the new lingerie she bought months ago but never wore for me, the sudden coldness in our bed. I kept telling myself it was just a phase, that we'd get through it. But no. Amanda was out there, sleeping with some guy from her office while I was at home with our kids, thinking I was doing the right thing by giving her space. I felt like the biggest idiot in the world. Around midnight, I texted my buddy Chris. He's one of my oldest friends, the kind of guy who'd be there for you at 3 a.m. if you needed him. "You up?" I sent, staring at the screen, not really expecting a reply. A few minutes later, my phone buzzed. "Yeah, what's up?" I hesitated, my thumb hovering over the keyboard. How the hell was I supposed to explain this? How do you tell your best friend that the woman you've loved for over a decade just blew your world apart? But I needed someone to talk to, someone who wasn't Amanda. So I texted back, "Can I come over? I need to talk." "Door's open," he replied. When I got to Chris's place, he was sitting on the front porch with a beer in his hand, waiting for me. I must have looked like hell because the first thing he said was, "Jesus, man, what happened?" I sat down next to him, and before I even knew what I was doing, the whole story spilled out. The late nights, the weird behavior, the texts, everything. I told him how I confronted her, how she broke down, admitted to it, said it was just physical. I could barely get the words out without my throat tightening up. Chris listened without interrupting, which is one of the reasons he's my best friend. He just let me talk until I'd said everything there was to say. When I finally finished, he sat there for a minute, taking it all in before shaking his head. "Shit, man," he said, running his hand through his hair. "I don't even know what to say. That's messed up." I nodded, staring at the ground. "Yeah, no kidding." "What are you gonna do?" he asked, looking at me like I might have an answer. The truth was, I didn't. I didn't know what the hell I was going to do. My brain was a mess. Part of me wanted to pack my things, take the kids, and leave her. But then there was another part of me that was still clinging to the idea of us, of the family we had. I hated her for what she did, but I wasn't ready to throw away 12 years of marriage in one night. "I don't know, man," I admitted, feeling helpless. "I don't even know where to start. She's begging me not to leave, says she'll end it, that it didn't mean anything." Chris scoffed, shaking his head. "Didn't mean anything? Man, if it didn't mean anything, she wouldn't have done it. I get that people make mistakes, but this isn't just a mistake. This is a choice she made over and over again. You've got to figure out what you want, Jack. What do you need?" I sat there staring out into the dark street, thinking about what he said. What did I need? I didn't know. I needed the pain to stop, but I also needed to figure out what was best for my kids. That was the thing that kept me rooted. Emma and Ryan. They didn't deserve this. They didn't deserve to grow up in a broken home because their mom made a selfish, stupid decision. But they also didn't deserve to watch their dad try to fix something that was already shattered beyond repair. After a long silence, I finally said, "I can't make any decisions right now. I'm too pissed. I need time to think, to figure it out." Chris nodded, and we sat in silence for a while longer. Eventually, I told him I needed to get back home. I didn't want to stay the night at his place and have the kids wake up without me there in the morning. They didn't know anything was wrong yet, and I didn't want to throw them into this mess until I knew how to handle it. When I got home, Amanda was asleep on the couch, a blanket pulled over her. I stood in the doorway for a minute watching her. Part of me still wanted to go over there, shake her awake, and demand answers. How could she have done this to us? But I didn't. I just quietly went upstairs, crawled into bed, and stared at the ceiling for what felt like hours. The next morning, things were tense. Amanda tried to act normal for the kids, making breakfast and pretending everything was fine, but we both knew better. We didn't talk. Every time I looked at her, I felt sick. I couldn't even bring myself to look her in the eye. I spent most of that day trying to figure out what to do next. How the hell do you move forward from something like this? Do you try to rebuild the trust? Or do you just walk away? That entire day, I felt like I was moving in slow motion, like my brain was stuck in some kind of fog. Amanda tried her best to act normal, but I could feel the tension hanging in the air like a heavy cloud. Every time she spoke to the kids, her voice was a little too cheerful, a little too forced. She was trying to put on a brave face, but I knew she was just as terrified as I was. I didn't say much. I couldn't. I wasn't sure how to talk to her without exploding, and I didn't want to do that in front of the kids. I spent most of the morning holed up in my office, pretending to catch up on work. But really, I was just staring blankly at my computer screen. My mind was racing, trying to make sense of everything. How do you go from being a couple who shares everything to this? How do you look at the person you've built a life with and see a stranger? I kept replaying the confrontation in my head, the way Amanda had admitted it, The way she had broken down, saying it was just physical, like that was supposed to make it easier for me to swallow. Around noon, Amanda knocked on the door to my office. She stood there in the doorway looking small and uncertain, like she wasn't sure if she was allowed to be there. "Can we talk?" she asked, her voice soft, like she was trying not to upset me. I didn't say anything at first. I just stared at her, trying to figure out if I even wanted to hear what she had to say. But I nodded and motioned for her to come in. She sat down on the edge of the chair, her hands clasped tightly in her lap, like she was holding on for dear life. "I'm sorry," she began, her voice trembling. "I don't know how many times I can say it, but I am. I never wanted to hurt you, Jack. I swear I didn't. I made a terrible mistake." I leaned back in my chair, crossing my arms over my chest. I could feel the anger bubbling up inside me again, but I tried to keep it in check. "A mistake?" I asked, my voice colder than I intended. "Sleeping with someone for months isn't a mistake, Amanda. That's a choice you made over and over again." She flinched at my words, her eyes welling up with tears. I know it was wrong, but I wasn't thinking. I don't even know why I did it." I scoffed, shaking my head. "You don't know why? Really? How about because you wanted to? Because you thought you could get away with it?" Her bottom lip trembled, and she wiped at her eyes. "It wasn't like that. I wasn't looking for it. It just happened. I was stressed, Jack. Work was overwhelming, and I didn't know how to handle it. And he—" She stopped herself, realizing she was about to mention him, the other guy. "He was just there. I'm not trying to make excuses, but I was in a bad place. A bad place." I felt my jaw clench as I tried to hold back the wave of anger rising up inside me. "So what? You were stressed? So you decided to fuck some guy from work? That's how you deal with stress now?" "I didn't mean for it to go that far," she said, her voice cracking. "It started out innocent. We were just talking. But then one thing led to another, and, I don't know, I felt trapped. And once it started, I didn't know how to stop." I stood up abruptly, the chair scraping against the floor as I pushed it back. "You didn't know how to stop? Amanda, you stopped by saying no. You stopped by remembering that you're married. You stopped by thinking about your kids, about me. Christ, you could have stopped any time. But you didn't." She started sobbing then, her face crumpling in on itself. I know I messed up, Jack. I'll do anything to make it right. I'll quit my job. I'll go to therapy. I'll do whatever it takes. Just please don't leave me. Please." I wanted to feel something. Pity, sadness, maybe even hope that we could fix this. But all I felt was numb and angry. I couldn't believe we were at this point. The woman I had built a life with, the woman I trusted more than anyone, was begging me not to leave her because she couldn't keep her vows. "I don't know what you want me to say," I said after a long silence. "I can't just pretend like everything's fine. You've destroyed my trust, Amanda. You've destroyed us." She wiped her face, sniffling. "I'll do whatever it takes to earn your trust back. Please, just give me a chance." I stared at her for a long time, the weight of her words pressing down on me. A chance. That's what she wanted. But how many chances had I already given her without knowing? How many lies had she told? How many nights had she spent with him while I sat at home with our kids, oblivious to the betrayal? "I need time," I finally said, my voice flat. "I can't give you an answer right now. I need time to think." She nodded, her eyes wide and desperate. "Okay, I'll give you as much time as you need. I'll do anything, Jack. Just, please." I didn't respond. I couldn't. I left the room, my mind still swirling with anger, confusion, and the overwhelming sense of loss. The marriage I thought we had was gone, and I didn't know if I could ever get it back. After that conversation, things got weird. We moved around each other in the house like strangers, tiptoeing through our daily routines as if we were walking on broken glass. Amanda kept trying to act normal, but I could see the panic in her eyes every time we passed each other. She was scared I'd leave, scared I'd explode again, scared I'd never forgive her. But I was just numb. I couldn't even muster the energy to feel anything when she was around. Every time I saw her, all I could think about was her with him, the way she'd been with me for all those years, the laughter, the conversations, the intimacy, except now I knew she'd shared that with someone else, and it made me sick. I started staying late at work. I couldn't stand being in the house. The thought of being near her, knowing what she'd done, was too much. I didn't know how to handle it. I'd finish my work and just sit there, staring at my computer or messing around on my phone, trying to distract myself. I'd grab a beer at some bar after work, just to avoid going home. The worst part was, I didn't even feel relief when I wasn't around her. The anger and betrayal followed me everywhere I went. Amanda knew what I was doing. She tried not to say anything at first, but one night when I came home around 11 p.m., she was waiting for me in the living room. The kids were already in bed, and the house was quiet except for the soft hum of the air conditioner. "You can't keep avoiding me, Jack," she said, her voice small and fragile. She was sitting on the couch, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. "I know you're angry. I know you don't want to be around me, but this isn't going to fix anything." I leaned against the doorway, feeling the weight of her words, but too tired to respond the way she wanted me to. "What do you want me to do, Amanda? Pretend like everything's fine? Because it's not." She shook her head, tears welling up in her eyes. "No, I don't want that. I want to talk. We need to talk about this. You need to tell me what you're thinking, what you're feeling. You can't just shut me out." I wanted to scream at her, tell her that she didn't get to make demands, that this was her fault. But the truth was, I didn't even know what I was feeling. I wasn't ready to have some big heart-to-heart with her. I wasn't ready to process what she'd done, let alone talk about it. "I don't know what you expect me to say," I finally muttered. "I'm still trying to figure it out." She stood up, crossing the room toward me. "Then let me help you," she pleaded. "I know I hurt you. I know I betrayed your trust, and I'll spend the rest of my life trying to make up for it if I have to. But you have to let me in. Please, Jack, don't push me away." I shook my head. "You don't get it. You don't get how broken this is. You think you can just apologize and I'll let you back in? That's not how this works. You destroyed everything we had." Her face crumpled, and she took a step back, like my words had physically hit her. "I know," she whispered. "I know I did, but I don't want to lose you. I'll do anything, Jack. I'll quit my job tomorrow if that's what it takes. I'll never talk to him again. I'll go to therapy, couples counseling, whatever you need. Just don't leave me. Don't walk away from this." I stared at her, trying to feel something, anything, that would convince me we could fix this, that there was something left to save. But I couldn't. Every time I thought about trusting her again, about opening up, I pictured her with him. I pictured all the nights she'd lied to me, the secret texts, the sneaking around, and it made me sick to my stomach. "I need space," I said, my voice hollow. "I can't do this right now." Her shoulders slumped, and I could see the devastation in her eyes. But she nodded, wiping at her tears. "Okay," she whispered. "Take the time you need. I'll wait for you. I'll wait as long as it takes." I didn't answer. I just turned and headed upstairs, leaving her standing there in the dark. Part of me hated how much I'd hurt her with my words, but the other part of me didn't care. She had done this. She had broken us, and now she had to deal with the consequences. That night, I slept in the guest room for the first time. I couldn't bring myself to share the same bed with her anymore. It felt wrong, like some kind of betrayal to myself. As I lay there in the unfamiliar bed, staring up at the ceiling, I wondered if we were beyond fixing, if I even wanted to fix it. The days that followed were a blur. I went through the motions, work, coming home, avoiding Amanda. She kept trying to reach out, kept offering to talk, but I wasn't ready. I didn't know if I'd ever be ready. The kids could sense something was off, but we did our best to shield them from the worst of it. I hated the idea of them knowing what was happening between us. They deserved better than this mess. But the space between Amanda and me kept growing. Every day, it felt like we were drifting further apart, and I didn't know if we could ever bridge that gap again. The days dragged on, and the tension in the house grew thicker with every passing minute. I could feel it in the way Amanda moved around me, tiptoeing like she was afraid of setting me off. I could see it in the way the kids looked at us, confused by the silence and the strained smiles we tried to force whenever we were all together. It was like we were living in two separate worlds, sharing the same roof, but barely acknowledging each other. I kept to myself as much as I could. I'd stay late at work, avoiding coming home until I knew the kids were getting ready for bed. Sometimes I'd pick up a 6-pack of beer and sit in my truck, parked in some random lot, just drinking and trying to clear my head. But no matter what I did, the image of Amanda with him haunted me. It was like a loop, replaying in my mind over and over again, and I couldn't make it stop. One evening, I came home a little earlier than usual. The kids were in the living room playing some game on the TV. I smiled at them, gave them a quick hug, and went upstairs. I didn't expect to see Amanda sitting on our bed, her phone in her hand, her eyes red and puffy from crying. She didn't notice me at first, but when she looked up and saw me standing in the doorway, her face crumbled. "Jack," she whispered, her voice shaky. "I need to tell you something." I froze. My heart started racing, a sick feeling twisting in my gut. I didn't know if I could handle more confessions, more secrets. "What now?" I asked, my voice harsher than I meant it to be. She wiped her eyes, her fingers trembling as she clutched the phone in her lap. "I ended it," she said. "I called him today and told him it's over, that I never want to see or speak to him again." I stood there, staring at her, not sure how to react. Part of me felt some small sense of relief, like maybe she was finally doing something to try to fix this. But another part of me didn't care. It was too late. The damage was done. "I don't know what you want from me," I muttered, running a hand through my hair. "Do you expect me to forgive you just because you ended it?" She shook her head quickly. "No, I don't expect that. I need you to know that I'm serious about fixing this. I know I can't take back what I did, but I'm trying, Jack. I'm trying to show you that I'm committed to making things right." I let out a bitter laugh, shaking my head. "Making things right? Amanda, you can't just wave a magic wand and undo months of lies and betrayal. You think calling him and telling him it's over fixes this? It doesn't." She looked down at her hands, more tears spilling down her cheeks. "I know it doesn't fix it, but it's a start." I didn't know what to say. I felt trapped between two versions of myself, the part that still wanted to believe we could fix this, and the part that knew it was broken beyond repair. "I don't even know if I want to fix this," I admitted, my voice low. "I don't know if I can." She stood up, crossing the room to stand in front of me. I could see the desperation in her eyes, the fear that I was slipping away for good. "Please, Jack," she begged. "Don't give up on us. I know I don't deserve another chance, but I'm asking you to give me one. For the kids. For us." I sighed, looking away from her. "For the kids," I repeated. That was the part that killed me the most. Emma and Ryan. They didn't deserve this. They didn't deserve to grow up in a broken home because their mother couldn't stay faithful and their father couldn't get over it. But at the same time, what kind of example would I be setting if I stayed? If I pretended like everything was okay when it wasn't? "I don't know," I finally said, my voice strained. "I need more time." She nodded, wiping at her eyes again. "Okay, I understand." But I could see the fear in her face. She was terrified that I'd leave, that no amount of time would be enough to heal the damage she'd done. Over the next few days, Amanda kept her distance, giving me the space I'd asked for. But the tension in the house was unbearable. I felt like I was walking around with this huge weight on my chest, and no matter what I did, I couldn't shake it. I couldn't talk to her without feeling a surge of anger and betrayal. Even when she was just sitting there doing nothing, I'd catch myself glaring at her, like her mere presence was enough to set me off. The kids noticed something was off, but we hadn't told them anything yet. I wasn't sure how to explain it to them. How do you tell your kids that their mom and dad might not stay together because their mom couldn't stay loyal? I couldn't do that to them. Not yet. One night, Emma came into my office while I was working on some paperwork for a big landscaping project. She stood there for a minute, fidgeting with the hem of her shirt, and I could tell she had something on her mind. "Hey, kiddo," I said, trying to sound cheerful, but I knew I wasn't fooling anyone. "What's up?" She shuffled her feet, not looking at me. "Is everything okay with you and Mom?" My stomach dropped. I should have known this was coming, but hearing her ask that question made it real in a way I hadn't expected. I swallowed hard, trying to figure out what to say. "Why do you ask?" She shrugged, still not meeting my eyes. "You guys have been different lately. You're not laughing together like you used to, and you don't talk as much. It just feels weird." I sighed, leaning back in my chair. "Things are complicated right now, Emma. But your mom and I both love you and Ryan very much. That's never going to change." "But are you mad at her?" she asked, finally looking up at me with those big, innocent eyes. I couldn't lie to her. Not completely. "Yeah, I'm mad. But we're trying to figure things out. It's just going to take some time." She nodded, but I could see the worry on her face. "I don't want you guys to fight." I felt a lump rise in my throat. "I know, sweetie. We're doing our best. I promise." She gave me a small smile, then left the room, leaving me alone with my thoughts. I sat there staring at the stack of papers on my desk, feeling more lost than ever. The kids were the only thing holding me together at this point, but I didn't know how long I could keep pretending that things might get better. After my conversation with Emma, something in me shifted. Hearing her voice, her fears made everything feel more real. It wasn't just me and Amanda anymore. It was our kids, their future, and the life we'd built together. I kept thinking about what Emma had said, how she'd noticed the changes between Amanda and me. Kids are sharper than we give them credit for. They pick up on everything, even the things we try to hide. I couldn't sleep that night. I tossed and turned, my mind replaying everything that had happened over the past few weeks. The discovery, the confrontation, Amanda's tears, and now Emma's worried face. I felt trapped, stuck between the anger I couldn't let go of and the responsibility I felt for my kids. What kind of father would I be if I walked away? But then, what kind of man stays with a woman who broke his heart and shattered his trust? That question kept looping in my head. I got up around 3 a.m. and went downstairs. The house was quiet, the kind of eerie silence that made it feel like I was the only person awake in the world. I grabbed a beer from the fridge and sat down on the couch, staring at the darkened TV, not really seeing anything. Amanda was upstairs, probably tossing and turning just like me. I knew she was waiting for me to make some kind of decision. I could feel it every time I was near her. The anxiety, the tension. She was desperate for me to say something, to give her any indication that there was still hope. But I didn't know what to say. Every time I looked at her, I felt the betrayal all over again. But there was doubt creeping in too. Doubt that maybe I was being too hard. Doubt that maybe, just maybe, I owed it to my kids to at least try. To at least think about the possibility of forgiveness. Could I do that? Could I even begin to forgive her? I finished my beer and opened another one, trying to numb the questions spinning in my head. I'd been holding on to the anger like it was the only thing keeping me afloat, but now the weight of everything was crushing me. It wasn't just anger anymore. It was exhaustion, confusion, and fear of what might come next. I stayed on that couch until the first light of dawn started creeping through the windows. The kids would be up soon, and I knew I had to at least try to put on a brave face for them. But inside, I felt like I was unraveling. Around 7 a.m., Amanda came downstairs, bleary-eyed and still in her pajamas. She stopped when she saw me sitting there, like she wasn't sure if she was allowed to approach me. We hadn't talked much since I told her I needed time. She kept her distance, giving me space, but I could see how much it was eating away at her. She stood there for a moment, hesitating, then walked over and sat down on the other end of the couch, We sat in silence for a long time, neither of us sure what to say. I could feel her glancing at me every few minutes like she was waiting for me to speak first. Finally, she broke the silence. "Did you sleep at all?" she asked softly. I shook my head. "Not much." "Me neither," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I keep thinking about everything. About us. About what I've done." I didn't respond. I didn't trust myself to speak without all the anger pouring out again. But she kept talking, her voice shaky and unsure. "I don't know how to fix this, Jack. I don't even know if I can. But I need you to know that I love you. I always have. I know I've made the biggest mistake of my life, and I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. But I'm begging you. For the kids, if nothing else. Please, just give me a chance." Her words hit me harder than I expected. I could see the sincerity in her eyes, the regret, the desperation. She wasn't just saying it to placate me, she truly meant it. And for the first time since all of this started, I felt something other than anger. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet. But it was something. Something that made me think maybe, just maybe, I wasn't ready to throw everything away. I ran a hand through my hair, feeling the weight of her words sinking in. "I don't know, Amanda," I said, my voice heavy with exhaustion. "I don't know if I can ever trust you again. I don't know if I can get past this." "I understand," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "I know I can't ask you to just forget what I did, but I'm asking you to think about our family. Think about the life we've built together. I'll do anything, Jack. I'll go to therapy. I'll quit my job if that's what it takes. I can't lose you. I can't lose us." I sighed, leaning back against the couch, staring at the ceiling. Her words hung in the air between us, and for the first time I felt the weight of the decision I was facing. It wasn't just about me anymore. It was about our kids, our life, the years we'd spent together. It was about whether I could let go of the anger long enough to even consider the possibility of forgiveness. "I need time," I finally said, my voice barely audible. "I don't know what I'm going to do yet, but I need more time to figure it out." She nodded, wiping away the tears that had started to fall again. "Take all the time you need," she whispered. "I'll be here. I'll be waiting." We sat there in silence for a long time after that. I didn't know what the future held for us or if there was even a future at all. But for the first time in weeks, I felt like maybe, just maybe, there was a sliver of hope. It wasn't much, but it was something. The next few days felt like I was walking through fog. I went through the motions, getting the kids ready for school, going to work, coming home. But inside, I was still stuck in that moment of indecision. Amanda gave me space like she promised. She didn't push me to talk, didn't try to force anything. She was careful around me, almost too careful, like she was afraid any wrong move would send me running. But what she didn't realize was that I wasn't running. Not yet. I was still trying to figure out if I could stay. I thought about everything, the history we had, the years of love, the life we'd built. I thought about the good times, the moments when I couldn't imagine being with anyone else. And then, like a punch to the gut, I'd remember the texts, the nights she'd spent with him, and that familiar anger would rise up in me again. But every time I saw Emma and Ryan, I felt the weight of it all pressing down on me. They didn't know what was happening, not really, but they could sense something was off. Emma was quieter than usual, watching me and Amanda carefully, as if she was trying to figure out what was wrong. Ryan was oblivious, still playing and laughing, but I knew it was only a matter of time before he started asking questions too. One evening, I sat in my office, staring at a family photo on my desk. It was from last summer, when we'd taken a trip to the beach. Amanda was smiling, holding Ryan on her hip while Emma stood next to me, both of us grinning like everything was perfect. And back then, it had felt perfect. That picture was a snapshot of the life I thought I had, the life I wanted to get back to. Could I forgive her? Could I find a way to move past what she'd done and rebuild our marriage? Or was I just holding on to something that was already broken beyond repair? I didn't know the answer yet, but I knew I couldn't keep living in this limbo. That night, after the kids had gone to bed, I found Amanda sitting at the kitchen table, sipping tea. She looked up when I came in, her eyes tired and hopeful at the same time. "Can we talk?" I asked, my voice quiet but firm. She nodded, setting down her mug. "Of course." I sat down across from her, taking a deep breath. "I've been thinking a lot, about everything, about us." Her hands trembled slightly as she folded them in her lap. "Okay," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know if I can ever trust you the way I did before," I started, my words slow and deliberate. "You hurt me, Amanda. You hurt our family, and that's not something that just goes away." Tears welled up in her eyes, but she didn't say anything. She just waited for me to continue. "But I also know that what we had, it's not something I can just throw away overnight. We've been together too long, built too much, and our kids, they deserve better than this." She sniffled, wiping her eyes, and nodded. "I know," she whispered. "They do. I'm not saying I'm ready to forgive you. I'm not even saying that I know how to, but I'm willing to try." Her eyes widened, and for a moment, I thought she was going to collapse from relief. You're willing to try?" I nodded, though the words felt heavy on my tongue. "But there are conditions." "Anything," she said quickly, her voice filled with desperation. "First, we're going to therapy, both of us, together and separately. If we're going to have any chance of fixing this, we need help. This isn't something we can fix on our own." She nodded rapidly. "I'll go. I'll do anything. I've already started looking into therapists." "Second," I continued, "I need complete honesty from you from here on out. No more secrets. No more lies. You tell me everything. I need to know where you are, who you're with, and I need to feel like I can trust you again. If there's even a hint of dishonesty, I'm done." "I promise," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "No more lies, no more secrets. I'll be an open book, Jack, I swear. And lastly," I said, "I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing it for me, for the kids. Don't think this is some get-out-of-jail-free card. You're going to have to earn back my trust piece by piece, and that's going to take time. A lot of time." "I understand," she whispered. "I know it won't be easy, but I'll do whatever it takes. Thank you, Jack. Thank you for giving us a chance." I didn't respond right away. I wasn't ready to thank her for anything. This wasn't about saving her. This was about figuring out if I could save myself from the bitterness that had been eating away at me. Could I forgive her? I didn't know yet, but I was willing to try. We sat there in silence for a while, the weight of the moment hanging in the air. It wasn't a happy ending, far from it, but it was a start. And for now, that was all I could give. The weeks that followed were a blur of therapy sessions and long, hard conversations. Amanda stuck to her word. She was honest, open, and committed to doing whatever it took to fix things. But it wasn't easy. Every time I looked at her, I was reminded of the betrayal. Trust didn't magically reappear, and some days it felt like we were still a million miles apart. But we kept going. For the kids, for ourselves. For the chance that maybe, just maybe, we could rebuild something out of the wreckage. Therapy helped, though it often brought up painful memories that we both had to face. There were moments I wanted to walk away, moments when the anger flared up again, but each time I reminded myself why I was staying, because I wasn't ready to give up yet. One day, after a particularly intense therapy session, I sat on the porch, watching the kids play in the yard. For the first time in a long while, I felt a small glimmer of hope. Maybe we'd never be the same. Maybe trust would take years to rebuild, but at least we were trying. And that was something. I wasn't sure where we'd end up, or if we'd make it. But for now, we were still here, still fighting, still moving forward. And that was enough.